Good afternoon, and welcome to the Community Voice. This show is sponsored by the SunnySide Place Community Development Corporation, and our purpose is actually to get the information out into the community that someone may get help that's needed to them. And today we have a great show, which is actually, I would think, a two-part show, and we have some great guests here with us today. And as you know, today is World AIDS Day, and we know that HIV rather, and AIDS has really affected our community, along with other diseases such as Hep C and hemophilia, and we have the experts here. We have the experts here today to give us a little bit of information about these different diseases and the statistics and things of that nature. And I would like to introduce my guest today. To my right is Ms. Robin Bennett, who is the president and CEO of Robin's Haven of Hope. And as you can see, she's wearing the red ribbon. The red ribbon indicates it actually indicates AIDS. It represents HIV. And you know, the pink ribbon for breast, but the red ribbon actually represents HIV. And Robin is the president of the Robin's Haven of Hope, and we want to welcome you today, Robin.
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Percy. I'm very honored to be here.
And yes. I'm going to go around, and I'm just going to introduce everybody, then we'll get back into our conversation. And next to me, we have Mr. Barry Horty. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you.
Glad to have you today. And Barry is an advocate for HIV. He has what we call the 3 H's, and that's what Robin told me. He has HIV, hemophilia, and Hep C, and he's going to tell us a lot about that, and we want to welcome him here today. Also, he works with the HIV ministry at his church, the Woodlands Church, correct?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. All right, thank you. And next to him, we have Mr. Wayne Gosby, who is the coordinator for the St. Luke's Texas Liver Coalition. And it's a lot you need to know today, and so we're going to move on with our show today, and we're going to start with Miss Robin's Haven of Hope, but Miss Robin Bennett, to tell us a little bit, give us a little bit of information on HIV today. And we know that HIV is devastating our area and our community, number one. So could you give us a little information about
today, as we know, is World AIDS Day. Here in the city of Houston, there's 1 in every 93 Houstonians living with HIV. And we are number 8 in AIDS in this on statistic level. In nationwide, Houston ranks number 8 just with the disease, and with the virus is 1 out of every 93 people. Every 7 hours, someone in this city, as we speak, is being infected by HIV. And in the Black community, we must bring awareness, we must do prevention, and most of all, we must break the myth. We must talk about these diseases, not only HIV, Hep C, HIV, HPV, and sexually transmitted diseases. Black women are number 1 with HIV. Our Black youth are right with the Black women. So today is the day to get awareness. Today is the day to learn about the disease that's claiming our community in a very large number. So.
Well, what about with our youth, the STD? And I don't think a lot of the youth actually understand how serious STDs are.
Well, our African American, I'm not just going back to African Americans, I'm going with statistics, shows that the African American youth are number 1. I think we're not educating, we're not doing prevention, that's the big part, is behavior and bringing awareness and teaching our children what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. I do not advocate for sex, but I do advocate for life. So what I'm saying, I can't tell the youth not to have sex, but I can tell the youth to get educated. We need prevention classes, and I just really hate to say any further, but reading the lines, just do prevention. That's just the most common way to do it.
How open are the young people, or how open, is this also affecting the more mature community as well?
Well, statistics say that the older generation, and God forgive me, Viagra has taken over.
Viagra, we better take that off the market. Huh?
Yes, because that Viagra is making the older generation, I'm talking about the ages of 60 and older, are coming down with HIV and AIDS because they say Viagra is one of the leading causes. So I recommend prevention for that group too, and education for that group.
Are they receptive to the information? What are some of the responses you get from people that you say, you know, you need to be tested, or what are some of the response you get? Because I see that we're constantly getting this information out, but the response is so sometimes negative, or I don't want to say negative, but they're not receptive to it.
Well, Versi, to put it to you mildly, the African American community has a myth that there's something that the white community is doing. No one is doing anything to us. We're doing it to ourselves. That is one thing that I have to say. We have to break the myth. This is not fiction. They'll say, oh, these numbers aren't true. Yes, they are true. And then when it happens to them, they'll ignore the fact. But when it happens, they want all the help in the world. But they didn't do the protocol, prevention, awareness, and education. There is no myth. I know syphilis did happen, but HIV is happening for real. And this has nothing to do with syphilis. This is reality. This is behavior. And then I must emphasize this, that the black men must be men, they must stay on one side. That's one way the black women are contracting this disease.
The down low, as they say.
The down low.
Just
yes, the down low, the down up.
Okay.
They must quit infecting the black women, because we are the root of our families. And if for any reason, if you're gay, it doesn't matter. But you don't have to hide. You don't have to publicize. But don't infect an innocent woman.
Right.
I'm real strong about that one.
Yeah. And it's good information, and we can't re-emphasize it enough. Just constantly until someone actually listens, that we're able to, if not prevent, but to help them to actually get treated, to actually get treated and get tested. Right. First of all, get tested.
That's right.
Get tested.
And let your partner be tested. And before you go into a relationship, you should get to know each other. You should be tested. If he don't want to be tested and she don't want to be tested, that's not a good relationship. If he doesn't want to use a condom and she says he doesn't want to use a condom, that's a bad signal right there. You should automatically know that while you don't want to use a condom, something's wrong. But most of all, I think both of you, before you go into a committed relationship, you must be tested for HIV, even before you marry, before you go into relationships, because it's so important. Because once you're in and once you got it, it's too late.
It's too late. Okay. Well, we can go on and on and on with this conversation, but we got such a good guest today that we got to get a little information of it all. It's going to have to be a part two. It's going to have part two of this show. I want to go ahead and get to Mr. Barry Hardy. And again, we're just really glad to have you. And I was just telling you before the show started that you're a picture of health. So I want you to go ahead and kind of tell us, I know hemophilia is a blood disease, but I want you to go ahead and tell us how, because the hemophiliac community, a lot of them, kind of have to get blood transfusions, and then from the blood transfusions, they sometimes contact HIV and Hep C. So just give us a little bit of your bio and history and what you're doing.
Well, you were very correct in what you said about, I appear perfectly healthy. I've had people come up and tell me you're the healthiest person I've ever met, because I do a lot of cycling. I'm pretty athletic in that regard. But I'm an example, because you can't see HIV or hepatitis C coming at you. Most people would not think I was a sick person. But I contracted both HIV and hepatitis C at least 30 years ago. As you mentioned, I am a hemophiliac, which is a very rare blood clotting disorder. Fewer than 1 in 10,000 people have that. It's a very rare genetic condition. And we relied heavily in the 1970s and early 80s on blood products to treat our blood clotting disorder. And we used a medication that I tell people that hemophiliacs were considered the canaries in the coal mine for the blood supply, because anything that infected the blood supply would show up with us first.
Right, right.
And in the early 80s, nearly 10,000 hemophiliacs in the U.S. contracted HIV, many of whom have passed on. My brother John was also born with hemophilia. He passed away 4 years ago from hepatitis C, which causes liver failure. And my sister married a hemophiliac named Pat, and we lost him to AIDS 20 years ago. So I'm very fortunate to still be, as you said, a picture of health.
So back then, were they actually testing the blood products for these diseases before, since you're saying some of the blood was actually infected with HIV or Hep C? Were they actually testing it then? Or are they testing the blood products more now?
Well,
I know they are, but I'm just saying back at the time that you actually
to the best of anyone's knowledge, it's assumed that HIV entered the blood supply sometime in the late 70s. And at that time there was no test for HIV. Originally it was something that was showing up in the gay community, among Haitians. IV drug users were contracting the disease. And then we started hearing on the evening news hemophiliacs. And it became known around mid to late 1982 that hemophiliacs were contracting HIV. And it was another 3 years before there was a test.
Wow.
And it was originally called GRID, gay-related immune disorder. Then it became HTLV. And then my original AIDS test says HTLV3.
Oh, okay.
And then finally, in late 1985, a definitive test for the virus was identified, and it was then called HIV, and was renamed AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So there were no tests until 1985. With hepatitis C, which was then called non-A, non-B hepatitis, there was no test until 1992. So blood products today are generally very safe. Incidences of transmission are extremely rare. But back when I was using those blood products, there were no tests.
HIV and AIDS. HIV, you can carry that for a lifetime and never actually get AIDS. Is that true?
That's correct.
True. Okay, but AIDS is deadlier, right?
And the way we usually describe it is that
I can never get enough education.
Yeah, HIV is the virus that causes AIDS.
Yeah.
And some of us with hemophilia passed away as early as 1981, 1982. Some of us are still living and doing well. So it's a disease that you can't predict. But we know that without medical treatment, without antiviral medications, we're at risk of developing AIDS.
Right. I also see that you are advocate, or you work with the AIDS ministry at your church. Could you tell us a little bit about how the AIDS ministry at your church works, and where it is? And
I was a member of the Woodlands Church for 14 years now. And it was only about 2 years ago that I started to tell people that I had HIV, that I had hemophilia. As you said, just to look at me, people would never know. And there was a lot of stigma associated with HIV and hepatitis C, and I just didn't want anyone to know my story. But I finally did confront that, and I told my friends kind of one at a time, and then I became more public. You know, I've had a couple articles in the newspaper and things like that about it, and I found that I was much better able to cope with the stress of my illness once I came out.